Good morning, viewers. I am Arunima coming live to you from Vijay Chowk, right outside the Parliament, where the monsoon sessions, day 2 of the session, is to get underway in just about a few minutes from now. Both the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are to assemble at 11 o'clock. Yesterday, both the houses saw any transaction of business. It was a rocky start to the session, stormy start, so to say, at least in the upper house, where the outgoing chairperson, the outgoing vice president, Venkaiah Naidu, took offense to the fact that right from the word go, opposition was being so aggressive in pushing through its agenda. In the lower house, because presidential elections voting were underway, even the lower house saw adjournment. Today, once again, the opposition is in a belligerent mood. Issues of the Agnipath scheme, issues about inflation, that is something that the Congress wants to raise, rising inflation. There is a possibility that Congress's MP Rahul Gandhi could also join the planned protest that Congress party has. And that all-important issue about which the entire country is talking about right now, the issue of how girl students were treated at a center in Kerala for her NEET exams. We have heard the NTA, the body which conducts the examination, come up with a clarification, but members of parliament want the education minister, wants the government to clarify on the floor of the house, so that issue could also come up. What else is expected? Let me bring in Pallavi Ghosh, tracks the parliament proceedings very closely. Pallavi, thanks for taking time out this morning. Yesterday, hardly any transaction. Is that what you expect today as well?
Well, if you go by the mood coming in from the opposition, certainly it could be a repeat of what happened yesterday. Multiple notices once again have been given. There are those pending notices on the Agnipath issue, on price rise. Today, some more notices on the GST rates which were applied yesterday on some commodities like dahi, paneer and so on and so forth. And of course, those protests which we saw in the premises of Parliament outside the Mahatma Gandhi statue by a joint opposition. So certainly they are going to be in a belligerent mood both in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Even as Arunima, the government has already begun listing bills. 32 bills is something which the government is talking about. And, you know, if you go by their track record and precedents, they try and ensure that the bills are passed in both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha so as to improve their report card, that even as the opposition is becoming a roadblock, we are the ones who are going ahead and ensuring that the parliament conducts its legislative business.
In terms of important bills that the government proposes, Pallavi, can you list a few? And they must be feeling upbeat about the fate of these bills, especially since parties like AIADMK, YSR Congress, the Shiv Sena faction as well, JMM, they've all shown their support to NDA as far as the presidential nominee goes, maybe even for the vice presidential candidate. Does that give them more confidence that this could translate into support for the bills as well?
Yeah, I mean, precedence also shows that, you know, Arunima, like in Rajya Sabha, the government doesn't have those kind of numbers. The BJP certainly doesn't have, and I think the opposition is even more belligerent and aggressive over there. But if you look at important bills like a triple talaq bill, somehow the government managed to get those bills passed. That's because of those backroom negotiations, because that's exactly what flow management is all about. You know, whether they're winning over BJD, YSR, TRS, you know, there are political compulsions of these regional parties where they're often seen siding with the government either by way of abstention or by openly supporting a bill, the AIADMK. And yes, you're right. I mean, the presidential and the vice presidential support coming in from those in the so-called opposition spectrum gives hope to the government that it is not going to be difficult in Rajya Sabha to get their way through as far as the legislation is concerned. When you talk about the bills, we have those list of 32 bills. But I think one important point which also needs to be mentioned is a bill which is not listed yet, and that is the cryptocurrency bill. There was a statement which came in from the finance minister herself, who says that their international concerns will also have to be addressed for any cryptocurrency bill to be put forward on the floor of the House. The RBI certainly is in favor of a ban on cryptocurrency, but the government also has to take in multiple factors, both Indian as well as international, before they actually formulate. So the missing of the cryptocurrency bill is also very, very interesting. But apart from that, the usual number of 32 bills are already there.
Pallavi Ghosh, thank you so much for getting us that update. We are expecting the houses to assemble any moment now. But before we go to the proceedings from Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, okay, the houses have begun. Both the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha proceedings have begun. We will see how things go, especially in the upper house, since, like Pallavi was reporting yesterday, the opposition was in a belligerent mood. They wanted to raise issues like price rise, Agnipath scheme. They also want to raise the issue of the latest GST regime that has kicked in. We will cut live to the houses in just a bit, but Shahzad Poonawalla and Rashid Kidwai, our guests for the morning also here. Shahzad Poonawalla, to you first. When the Agnipath scheme protests began throughout the country, the armed forces countered by saying that look at the number of applications that we are claiming. Shahzad, just hold on. Lok Sabha proceedings have begun. I'm just dipping into it and then coming back to you.
माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, जैसा कि माननीय सदस्य ने कहा है कि फसल बीमा और जो ऐसे फार्मर जो टेनेंट फार्मर हैं उनके लिए सरकार की ओर से विशेष ये योजना है कि उसके अंदर भी उसको फसल बीमा योजना के अंदर उनको इंक्लूड किया गया है। और प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी का जब से सरकार बनी है तब से ये विजन है कि हमारे किसानों को उनको उनकी फसल का अच्छी सीड भी मिले और उन किसानों को फर्टिलाइजर भी मिले, उसके लिए उनको चाहे इंश्योरेंस हो तो इंश्योरेंस भी मिले और उन किसानों को लोन भी मिले। इस दृष्टि से चाहे वो टेनेंटेड किसान हो या वो अन्य किसान हो, सभी किसानों के लिए इस योजना के अंदर जोड़ा गया। और विशेषकर जो फसल बीमा की बात की गई है तो इसके अंदर जो ऐसे किसान हैं जो जमीन को जुताई के ऊपर लेते हैं, उन किसानों के लिए जो टेनेंट फार्मर हैं उनके लिए फसल बीमा योजना के अंदर जॉइंट लाइबिलिटी ग्रुप के अंदर अगर आते हैं तो उन किसानों को भी फसल बीमा का लाभ मिलता है।
Second supplementary.
Okay.
Sir, in the year 2016, the Niti Aayog came up with an expert committee report on a model agricultural land leasing law. They are also suggesting various reforms with respect to legalization of land leasing, recording of the same, regulations on rent. Among others, what measures has the government for implementation of these suggestions?
माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, जैसा कि 2016 के अंदर भारत सरकार ने एक मॉडल एक्ट लाया था और इस मॉडल एक्ट के अंदर जो टेनेंसी एक्ट था उस एक्ट को सभी राज्यों के अंदर सर्कुलेट किया और राज्यों ने निश्चित रूप से उन सर्कुलेट को किए हुए उनको कुछ राज्यों ने अडॉप्ट भी किया है और कुछ क्योंकि ये भूमि और जो संबंध है और कृषि का जो है वो राज्य का विषय होता है और इसके लिए उनको कैसे सपोर्ट देना है, उनको कैसे उनको किसानों को सुरक्षा मिले और इसके साथ ही उनके पट्टों को वैध कैसे माना जाए, इस दृष्टि से जो मॉडल एक्ट प्रस्तुत किया है उसके अंदर कुछ राज्य जैसे आंध्र प्रदेश है उन्होंने अपना एक्ट बनाया है, राजस्थान ने भी अपना एक्ट बनाया है कृषि के लिए और ऐसे ही उत्तर प्रदेश ने भी अपना एक्ट बनाया है। तो इस नाते मुझे लगता है कि किसानों को संरक्षण देने के लिए और ऐसे जो किसान हैं जिनके साथ अन्याय होता है उन किसानों को न्याय मिले, इसके लिए ये एक्ट है वो इसका एक बनाकर और मॉडल एक्ट के रूप में राज्य सरकारों को।
So those were pictures coming in from Lok Sabha where the opposition is sloganeering, demanding that the GST hike, which has led to increase in prices for a lot of day-to-day products, that hike be rolled back. Shahzad Poonawalla, this is exactly what I was asking you, that for Agnipath you managed to counter the opposition by pointing out to the numbers that so many people have applied for the job. But price rise, inflation is an issue which affects the common man and the opposition might find a resonance there.
Arunima, these are what I call tax-free allegations and fact-free propaganda. You would know that these decisions aren't taken by the government of India, they're taken by the GST Council, which has equal representation for all. And in fact, the weighted representation of the states is 2/3, center is 1/3. And there were 3 opposition states, Rajasthan, West Bengal and Kerala in that council which took this decision. None of them opposed that decision. And having said that, look at the lies that are being peddled. The lie is that on certain repackaged and pre-labeled retail items of certain items is being taxed for the first time. That's not true. You know that these taxes have been levied even in the pre-GST VAT regime. And by the way, milk powder is inexpensive footwear, wheat, rice, there are a whole range of items whose GST has been brought down from 18% to 0% or 5%. What about those? So, you know, those who impose 10% retail inflation.
Right. Shahzad, if you give me a moment, I just want to tell my viewers that Rajya Sabha has now been adjourned till 2 o'clock. Opposition has been demanding that price rise be discussed, that the increase in prices be withdrawn, and that is the issue which posed adjournment in Rajya Sabha as well. Cutting to Lok Sabha.
फसल बीमा हर राज्य में लागू हो, इसके बारे में क्या कोई विचार सरकार कर रही है? हेलो, माननीय सदस्य जी ने जो प्रश्न किया है कि फसल बीमा योजना, वैसे जो फसल बीमा योजना जो नई फसल योजना बनी है उसके अंदर सभी राज्यों से राय लेकर ही उसने बनाई गई थी। और अभी भी हमारी यहाँ पर जो मीटिंग हुई थी जिसमें देश भर के सभी जो कृषि मंत्री हैं उनको बेंगलोर के अंदर मीटिंग हुई और इस विषय पर भी चर्चा हुई है। और उसके अंदर ये किसानों उन मंत्रियों से आग्रह किया है कि आप जो एक फसल बीमा है उसको लागू करें। बाकी वैसे राज्य हैं वो अपनी फसल बीमा योजना के लिए स्वतंत्र है, लेकिन कुछ राज्यों ने, जैसा कि आंध्र प्रदेश है, आंध्र प्रदेश ने पहले इस योजना से, इस जो नई फसल बीमा नीति से बाहर गए थे, लेकिन अब उन्होंने वापस एक साल के बाद।
So Rajya Sabha adjourned till post-lunch. Lok Sabha is seeing continuous sloganeering from the opposition. Pallavi Ghosh, I believe the opposition members are now in the well of the house. Unified opposition, or do you see a divide there?
No, I think on this particular issue, we will see most of the opposition leaders actually seem to be speaking in one voice, but largely a large number of Congress leaders are very much out in the well of the house. Opposition unity has always been a very dicey kind of a comment on key issues like passage of certain bills, on issues like presidential and even vice presidential elections. We often see a divide on that. But we were talking about political compulsions of political parties. At the end of the day, when they go back to their constituency, they also have to answer the question of voters that did you represent the cause which we are upset about? And therefore on issues of people's issues, I would say whether it's on GST, price rise, you would often see them coming together. So this is the issue-based unity that we are talking about. Now earlier this morning, Gaurav Gogoi, Manikam Thakur of the Congress party issued notices on a new GST slab which has been imposed on some essential commodities of daily use. But apart from that, there have been multiple notices from the Aam Aadmi Party, the left parties, the Trinamool Congress, and of course the Congress party on GST, price rise, and also on the Agnipath issue.
Right, Pallavi, do stay on. We are constantly keeping our eye on the proceedings there in Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha adjourned. Shahzad Poonawalla and Rashid Kidwai also are here with me. Rashid, of course, the opposition, a unified opposition, is making this a point that this is a matter which affects people and therefore government must answer. But like Shahzad was pointing out, BJP's case is that GST Council has representations from some of the opposition ruled states as well. How is it that they did not raise a voice? Will this explanation cut ice with the constituents of the government, of the ruling regime?
Both sides seem to be going through the motions. You see, the opposition knows that this is an opportunity, a photo op, a media, coverage opportunity to raise voices of, which they think is of public interest. The government, the problem is that job of running the house lies with the ruling party or the ruling coalition, and there is trust deficit, and that is the root cause of problem. Otherwise, some kind of effort can be there, but as we are seeing in Lok Sabha that, there are slogan shouting and there is a kind of question and answers are being, Kailash Chaudhary is responding to the queries in question hours. Similar thing will happen. There are 18 sittings and you will see many important bills will get passed in what we call it, when there is a din in the house and slogan shouting, etc. So government will do its business and claim that, it has certain percentage of, running of the house and smooth passage of the bill, 30 plus bills. But an opposition would claim that they raised these matters of grave public interest. This is how it's sad. But you can see there was this order of dharna and it being made mockery of that, because this kind of orders were issued earlier also when the BJP was in opposition. It never adhered to it.
Shahzad, that has been a criticism for some time now, that without discussion, important bills get passed in din, and therefore, all right, I think.
आप सदन में प्रश्न नहीं करना चाहते, तख्तियां लेकर आ रहे हैं। ये दादा नियमों की किताब लेकर खड़े हैं और नियमों की किताब आपने पढ़ रखी है। ये नियम की किताब, दादा नियम की किताब पढ़ाओ इनको। नियमों के तहत 349 के तहत सदन के अंदर तख्तियां लेकर आना उचित नहीं है। ये परंपराएं ठीक नहीं है। आप सदन के अंदर कुछ मर्यादाओं का पालन करो, अच्छी परंपराओं का पालन करो। महत्वपूर्ण प्रश्न आपने लगाया किसानों पर, समर्थन मूल्य पर। बाहर जाकर किसान की बात करते हो, अंदर सदन में किसानों की बात नहीं करते हो। बाहर जाकर महंगाई की बात करते हो, सदन के अंदर महंगाई की बात नहीं करते। आपको पिछले सत्र में मैंने महंगाई की चर्चा के अलाउ किया था, आपने चर्चा नहीं की उस पर। ये उचित नहीं है, गलत तरीका ये। नो, आप सदन में चर्चा नहीं करना चाहते। मैं हर विषय पर, हर मुद्दे पर आपको चर्चा करने का पर्याप्त अवसर देता हूं। सभा की कार्रवाई आज दोपहर 2 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
Right. So after Rajya Sabha, even Lok Sabha is adjourned till 2 o'clock. Pallavi Ghosh still there with me. Pallavi, would you say on expected lines? We've seen in the last few sessions, the first week government allows opposition to vent, and only then is the legislative business taken with all seriousness.
And I would also find very interesting what the Speaker was saying, because in the backdrop of the recent controversy of the do's and don'ts, while the opposition has been insisting this means a muzzling of the democracy and us not being allowed to express our point of view, the Speaker, of course, if you remember the press conference, did also mention the fact that this is an old practice. Both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha Secretariat rushed in to clarify that, do's and don'ts in terms of dharnas and demonstrations are something which have not been allowed. But, they are clearly being allowed here. What is going to be interesting to watch is that whether any action is going to be taken against these MPs, because they clearly violated those rules of the rule book, where they actually walked up to the well of the house with their placards. But having said that, yes, pretty much that's usually the scene. The government does allow them, to carry on that hangama, and they try and push the legislative business as well. I mean, we've seen that many bills which have been passed in the din, and even if a post facto there comes an analysis from the opposition that you don't even allow a debate and discussion, the government defends itself by saying that there is nothing to stop you. You can only calm down. You can allow a debate and discussion, take a part in that process, and then allow the bill to be passed. So there are always going to be two sides of the stories, both of them hitting out at each other. But clearly the opposition is seizing this opportunity, particularly I would say the Congress party today is seizing this opportunity to try and make the point that we do raise people's issues.
Right, and that has been a criticism of the Congress party, that you're too busy fighting battles on social media. You're not really hitting the street, raising the issues that matter to the common man. Shahzad, I'm sorry I had to stop you twice, but that is what I wanted you to come in on. This is an issue which affects the common man. Whatever you might say about the GST Council meeting, the opposition rule states not making this point there, do you think that argument will be enough for people who are constantly comparing what is the salary they are receiving compared to what is the expenditure that they are being made to face with each passing week?
Arunima, just let me first weigh in on the behavior of the Congress party inside Parliament. By the way, I have served in Parliament for a brief period of time, and the Business Advisory Committee decides with consensus what issues need to be discussed in every sitting. And therefore, for the opposition to now come and say that we have not got an opportunity, last time also they were given an opportunity to discuss price rise, they got an opportunity to discuss COVID management, they ran away from the debate because they believe not in consensus but confrontation, they believe in dharna, not discussion, they believe in taking the house hostage, not allowing the house to function, and therefore that is undemocratic. We are ready for any kind of discussion, debate. We have said let's list these issues and discuss them. Now, having said that, coming to your major issue, why doesn't the opposition, the opposition has little credibility because they were giving retail inflation of 10% plus during the UPA. Having said that, today despite two global crises, the inflation has been at around 7.5%, not exceeded that. Average inflation has been much lower. This is during a time when United States is facing its 40-year high in inflation and other places are also facing inflation. But having said that, let's have a debate based on facts. Now, let me show you one tweet, and on the part of the BJP, I'm showing this tweet. This is a tweet put out by Jairam Ramesh. I'm sure Pallavi and Rashid have seen it. Jairam Ramesh says yesterday, today the opposition-led Congress got the Rajya Sabha adjourned for the day. got the Rajya Sabha adjourned, and he's saying it as if it's a matter of pride. This is brazen, brazen anti-parliament politics. How can you say that I got the House adjourned and mark it as a flag of honor? So this kind of behavior shows that they don't want real discussion. They only want to create a tamasha, and that's what they've been doing. National emblem issue, word ban issue, alleged word ban issue, alleged dharna ban issue, or other issues.
Right. Rashid, does that criticism stick that Congress-led opposition is treating this as a badge of honor that they're not letting House function?
Yeah, I think, you see, the House, in a vibrant democracy, House must function, and the opposition should make their point within the, so to say, four walls of what is parliamentary decorum, etc. But we must also not be very, you look at what late Arun Jaitley and Sushma Swaraj had said before 2014 about similar protests. They had justified it. They said that is a legitimate tool to adjourn the House. After all, what can opposition do? So opposition, whichever political party or formation is in opposition, they apply this tool of dharna, of protest, of forcing adjournment in the House. This is is considered as a legitimate and acceptable tool by actually everyone. So therefore, I think it's a bit rich to say that the opposition is acting irresponsible, because it's exactly the same thing that was done before by the BJP until 2014.
May I just come in very briefly?
In fact, old-time parliamentarians. Yes, Shahzad, very quickly, please.
Rashid, I know he's a good author and journalist, but he should not be selective. What did Manmohan Singh say at that point of time? He said that it was equally the opposition's responsibility to run the House. So he quotes Mr. Jaitley, late Mr. Jaitley, very wrongly. Mr. Jaitley never said adjournments are a tool for parliamentary tactic. He spoke in a completely different context where the government was completely embroiled with the corruption scandals that were there, and they had no accountability, and therefore Parliament was used as a measure of accountability. So, Mr. Kidwai, we should not confuse matters, and we should not quote selectively.
Shahzad, thank you for setting the record straight there. Rashid, I appreciate you joining us and giving us that perspective as well. Thank you to Pallavi Ghosh for explaining to us what's happening on the floor of the House. Both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are adjourned till 2 o'clock. We will come back to you after this very quick break with other news. Stay with us.